So by now, you've probably already unboxed and set up your brand new iPhone 16 or iPhone 16 Pro, but now you might be overwhelmed and just wondering what to do next. Well, that's what I'm here for, because in this video, we're going to cover the first 23 things that you should do, the first settings you should change, the first features you should try out, and just everything you need to know to get the most out of your device. And there are many bonus tips sprinkled throughout this video as well, so stay alert. The first thing you want to do is make sure your device is actually new. And I know it sounds crazy, but go into your settings and go to battery and then go to battery health. And from here, you want to make sure that your maximum capacity is at 100%. If it's not at 100% and you've had your phone for less than 14 days, return it and get a new one. And also take a look at the cycle count. So mine is at 0 because I just got the phone today, but yours should be at a low number if you just got the phone within the past week or so. Now we also want to make sure that our battery settings are dialed in from the very start, because we want to have a good long life, a good healthy battery on our iPhone 16 and 16 Pros long term. So what you want to do is go under the battery health and go into charging. And from here we have a new chart where we can adjust our charge limit. So this is going to allow you to limit your charge to only a certain percentage. So by default, your phone will charge up to 100%, which is fine. But for the long-term, health of your lithium-ion battery, it's usually advised to not charge up to 100%. So it's usually advised to stay between 80 to 90%. So I'm personally going to be setting my charge limit to 90%. That means that my iPhone will only ever charge up to 90%. It will never charge up to 100% because that's just better over the lifespan of the battery. Now keep in mind that will disable optimized battery charging. Now we also have clean energy charging down here as well, and that is a personal preference, but I will turn that off permanently because I want my phone to charge when I want it to charge. And then also, if you want your battery percentage in the status bar, we have the option for that here. So you might want to turn that on or off depending on your preference. And if you're not a fan of the silent mode toggle up here next to the time, you can actually turn that off. So go into your sounds and haptics settings and you have a kill switch up here for silent mode. You don't want to turn that off. You want to turn off what's right below that, show in status bar. So we're going to turn that off, and now silent mode stays on, but it just doesn't show up in the status bar. Now the next thing you need to do is understand how to use the camera control button properly. So at first, this is going to be very annoying, very unreliable, and just very difficult to get used to. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to improve the overall reliability of this button in a moment. But first, let's talk about how to actually use the button and what it can do. So anytime you're in an application on the home screen or on the lock screen, when you press in on this button, it will launch the camera application, and you have to actually press. This is a real button. It does have haptics built in, but it is a real physical button. So you do have to press all the way in as if you were pressing, the side button. Once you're in the camera application, you have other functions, and you'll notice that if you swipe your finger over top of this button right now, nothing happens. And that's because this is not just some type of touchpad. This is an actual button. So you can't just swipe your finger over it. You do have to use a little bit of force, a tiny little bit of force you have to use on this button, since again, it's not a touchpad, it's a button after all. Once you're in here, you will see that zoom is the default when you go in to this menu, but if you want to get to something else, you can just double tap. So double tap on that button and it will open up this menu right here where you can choose between depth, you have exposure, and you can see that mine is pretty reliable right now. And I'll show you the trick for getting that in a moment, because at first this was not the case for me. I was having a lot of issues, but we have tone, we have styles, you have all these things to go into, and all you do is to go into one of those menus, just press one time on that menu and you'll be allowed to change that function, and then double tap on the button again, and that will go out back to the menu. And keep in mind, you could also use the screen for this. So if you double tap to go back to the main menu here, you could use your finger as well. You don't have to continue using the button. So you can select things, you can use the slider, you can do whatever. You could also just tap the side there to reopen up the menu. You don't have to continue using the control button, the camera control button for everything. So once you have the shot you like to take a picture, you just press in on the camera control button and it will take a photo. And if you press and hold on the camera control button, it will take a quick take video. So we're taking a video right now, we can change our zoom, and then once we let go, it will stop recording that video. So those are the overall basic functions, but let me show you how I've made the camera control button so much more reliable, because at first it was not reliable at all. So what you want to do to change this is go into your settings and then go down to accessibility, and then in accessibility, go down until you see camera control. You want to go into here, and then right here under light press force, you probably want to change this to lighter. So by default, it is of course set to the default option, But if you don't want to have to press down so hard on the camera control button, I would recommend going in here and changing this to lighter. But there's even more settings that you might want to change. So we also have the controls gesture. So light press is probably the optimal way to go, but you can change that to a swipe. And this is just to access the extra controls. And then down here at the bottom, we have the double light press speed. So this is to pull up the menu for changing between zoom and, all of that. You can have that set to be slower or slow. The default is kind of fast when you have to, double press right here to pull up the menu. So you have to do it kind of fast to trigger it. So if you want to slow that down, you can do that right here by choosing slow or slower. Now, the next thing you need to do is change what the camera control button does when it launches. So it does not have to launch the default camera application. You can change that to be something else, even a third-party application. So go into your settings and go to camera and then to camera control. And right down here at the bottom, you have a little menu where you can choose which application launches when you press the camera control button. So if I want to open up Instagram, for example, I can just press on the camera control and it will take me straight to the Instagram stories, and I can press again to take a photo. Now you might also want to change the launch camera gesture. So if you accidentally press the camera control button, especially if you are left-handed, then you might want to change this from a single click to a double click. So now if I press the camera control button, nothing happens. I have to double click to open up the camera control. So that can be very convenient if you have any accidental presses on that button. And then the final thing I'll mention about the camera control is the clean preview option. So this is on by default, but I personally turn this off. So what this is when you go into the camera application and you go into start using your camera control, you'll notice that when you start, sliding on this menu and doing whatever up here, the rest of the UI for the camera goes away. You don't see anything up here and you don't see anything down here at the bottom. You notice that? How it just came back? Well, if you want that to stay there, you might want to turn clean preview off. So now when we go back and do the same thing, you can see that our whole camera UI remains intact. And while we're on the topic of photos, please, for the love of Tim Cook, customize your Photos application, because by default in iOS 18, the Photos application is so confusing and so overwhelming. So what you want to do is just go all the way down to the bottom. Just do that by default, and then you want to go to customize and reorder. And from here, you want to disable any of the albums that you do not want to see every single time you go into your Photos application. So for me, that's things like people and pets. I don't want to see, maybe I don't want to see shared albums. I don't want to see wallpaper suggestions. I don't want to see memories, no featured photos. And maybe I want trips to be all the way at the very top. I can take and drag this all the way to the top so that every time I go into Photos and I scroll down, trips is the very first thing I see. Or maybe pinned collections. Maybe I want that to be right underneath of trips. There we go. And media types, maybe we'll put that right underneath of albums. Done. And now when we press X, we go back. It's a much cleaner interface and we have things that we actually want to see here now. The next thing you want to do is customize and really just understand the power of the action button. So now this is on every iPhone 16 model. It's not just a Pro exclusive. So you need to configure this and understand its capability. So go into your settings and we have this menu right here for action button. And here by default, it is set to silent mode. But in my opinion, I don't use that really at all. I'm permanently in silent mode, so I don't really need that. I prefer to have this set to flashlight. That's a good one. Or you can have recognize music there. That's a new one. We also have something very interesting here called controls. So this is new with iOS 18. So if you go into here, you have kind of like some of your control center toggles that you can invoke from pressing on the action button. So for example, if I want the action button to trigger dark mode, I can have that set. So you can do a lot with the action button. It's more than that as well. You could also open up applications or menus straight from the action button. So if I go into my shortcuts, if I want to open up X, for example, straight from the action button, I can do that. So if I press and hold on the action button, it will open up X for me. So Apple said that the ceramic shield glass on the iPhone 16 series is 50% tougher this year compared to last year. But I've already seen the durability tests and your phone is not going to survive a big drop. So the next thing you need to do is protect your investment with a solid case from our longtime channel partner, Rhino Shield. So Rhino Shield offers a complete lineup for 360 degrees of protection, and that includes their classic solid suit case, which comes in 5 new colors, and you can even add a design on there if you want. And they also have an anti-yellowing clear case with a lifetime warranty, along with a new colorful version called Jelly Tint, and these come in bright, trendy colors. And if you want an even more unique case, they also have these retextured designs, which add some extra pizzazz to those anti-yellowing cases. And of course, all of their cases are MagSafe compatible with an extremely strong magnet inside of the case. They do all have the cutout for the camera control button, and they also have a solid 11-foot drop protection rating. And if you need more protection, they do also have the 3D Impact Screen Protector Pro, which you can get 40% off of when buying a case. But the best part about all of Rhino Shield's cases is that the buttons are customizable, so you can order different colored buttons and camera rings to make your case look unlike anybody else's. So check out Rhino Shield. I'm sure you'll find something you like for your iPhone 16 or 16 Pro or any other iPhone you might have. So click my link in the description below and be sure to use code Brandon for an extra 10% off. The next thing you need to do is make your iPhone yours. Make it stand out from the rest. And that's never been easier to do than with iOS 18 because we have some extreme customizability options. So if you press and hold on your home screen and this little dead space down here, your phone will go into jiggle mode. And if we go up to edit up in the top left and go to customize, this is where you can customize your icons. So I prefer dark, but you can have it set to automatic, and you could also have tinted icons. So if you want to match your background, you could have that. You could press this eyedropper right here to get the exact, color of your background. You can change the saturation down here and the color right here. You could also choose if you want to darken the background or not. So that can look really good if you have dark icons. And then we also have large icons, which will make your icons larger and they will lose the text underneath. So it makes a really clean home screen. You could also move applications around anywhere on the grid, so they don't have to be right next to each other anymore. So this is great, especially if you have, widgets or maybe a wallpaper where you want to see maybe a building or a person in the background. You can now arrange your icons around that building or person because you can move them anywhere on the grid. They still have to be, actually in a grid, but they don't have to be right next to each other anymore. Anyways, also you need to customize your control center. So the control center is also brand new this year with iOS 18. And there's a lot of customization to do in here. So this is something else where nobody's control center is going to look like another person's. Like you can really do so much in here. So if you tap and hold, you could also press the plus, by the way, up in the top left. You could also turn off your phone up there now as well. But you could tap on the plus there, or you could just tap and hold like it's the home screen. And if you go to add a control, you can add any of these controls here. And there are a number of them, and third-party applications can also tie into here, as you can see with Instagram. And what's really cool about this is that you can have multiple pages for your control center as well. You could also adjust the size of your widgets in here. So just treat these like their home screen widgets. You can move them around, you can move them around on the screen. You can change their size on the fly. It's really, really nice. And we have a separate section for music, a separate section over here for connectivity. You can actually take and hold and drag to go through these pages as well. But really cool. Definitely customize the control center. Oh, and one last thing I want to show you about customization is that you can now lock and hide applications. So if I wanted to lock and hide WhatsApp, for example, I can haptic press on the app icon, and we have this new option here for require Face ID. If you press on that, it will give you the option to either just lock the application or you can lock and hide the application. So we're going to hide and lock it. It will scan your face and it tells you it will be obscured. We can hide app and boom, it's gone. And you can always find this in the app library at the bottom. We have a hidden folder right here. And then when you tap on that, you do need to authenticate via Face ID. Now, the next thing you need to do is get the new MagSafe puck and also upgrade your charging block, because you can now charge the iPhone 16 faster, both wired and wirelessly. So this is exclusive to the iPhone 16 series because now we can wirelessly charge from 0 to 50% in 30 minutes with the new 25-watt MagSafe puck. And there's even a 2-meter option now in terms of the length of the cord, which is nice. So if you're somebody who wirelessly charges a lot, you definitely want to check out the new MagSafe puck from Apple. And as far as wired charging goes, you do probably want to get a faster charging block as well, because the iPhone 16s will now charge around 39 watts, which is a decent improvement over the iPhone 15 lineup, which maxed out around 27 to 29 watts. So just make sure you have higher than a 30-watt block if you want to take advantage of the fast charging with the iPhone 16s. The next thing you need to do is understand the new revamped photographic styles, because just like the Photos application, these are very confusing. I feel like everything with the iPhone 16 this year is kind of confusing at first. So when you go into the camera, and you probably already saw this from the capture button as well, but if you go into the little square icon up in the top right-hand corner, that is new. That is the next generation photographic styles, the revamped photographic styles, and these are much different from anything we've seen in the past. So you'll see undertones right here, and that's because to the left, we have 5 different undertone styles. So these are basically just to dial in skin tones better. And then to the right over here, if we scroll over, we have these moods. There are 9 mood styles, and these are just various other kind of like Instagram style filters. And you'll see all the statistics up top. But if you want to change that, you can change that in a much different way now than before, a much better way in my opinion than before, but it can be pretty confusing. So I really like the undertones. So we're gonna go over here and adjust these. So the thing to keep in mind here is that you want to choose your style first. You don't really wanna mess with anything down here until you choose your style. So we'll just choose this undertone right here. And then this little square down here is how you can change the tone and the color for that specific filter. So if we move this around, you can kind of see the numbers moving around up top. So that's corresponding to the tone, the color, and the palette, which is what we'll touch on here in a moment. So you can kind of see the colors up here show as well. So you'll see that the square has like black beneath, which means if we go down there, it'll get darker. Up higher, it will get lighter. So kind of just use the square as a reference point to the color you're trying to achieve. That's what I've learned from using this. You can see certain ones, when it's really red, that means that, if you go up here, it's going to have more of a red tone, although that doesn't really look very red to me, but you can kind of just see that these usually indicate the type of color that you'll get. So keep that in mind. And then also below that is the palette. So this is the intensity. So you can change the intensity of whatever you choose. So when you choose the look you want, if you want it to be maybe dialed down a little bit, you can reduce the intensity right here with this little slider. And this slider will only adjust the palette. As you can see from the top menu, this does not change the tone or the color. It's just the intensity of the tone and the color. And you can see how crazy you can make some of these photos look. I mean, these are much better. I have to say that the photographic styles are more appealing than ever now with the iPhone 16. You can really transform photos unlike anything you could do before on the iPhone. So it's pretty impressive. I mean, just look at the colors that I'm changing this iPhone 16 here. So it's pretty fun. It does take a while to get used to, I will, say that, but it's cool because up top you can reset these as well. So if you don't like how something looks, you can always reset it back to default by pressing that little icon next to palette. And something else to keep in mind here is that when you tap on the capture button right here, when you take a photo, that's not the only place that you could add a photographic style. You could also add this after taking a photo. So if I go out of here, I just swipe down to get out of there. Actually, we'll just take one right now. So we'll just take a photo right now with no photographic style. But if we go into here and then we tap on the edit button down here, we get this option for styles. And from here, you can change the different styles. So this gives you a much better view of how the photo looks with those styles. And you can also adjust these as well. If you tap on it, you get kind of a little mini UI of what we have in the main camera section. And by the way, one other thing you want to keep in mind here is that you want to have your camera settings preserved. You want them to save for the next time you go into the camera application. So that's the next thing we need to do is go into your settings and go into camera, and then you want to go down until you see preserve settings. And then from here, you want to select everything that you want to be saved the next time you go into the Photos application. So for example, we just talked about it, but we do also have photographic styles right here. So if you don't want your photographic style to reset every time you go into the camera app, you need to select this. That way it stays at the last photographic style you use and it doesn't just automatically reset. And I think the camera mode is another one that you need to have turned on. You can have the controls menu, the depth control, which is for, taking portrait shots. You have your exposure adjustment. You have all these. Obviously it's going to be very, based on personal preference, what you want to always be saved in the camera application, but go in here and make sure you have this selected with what you want to be preserved. Let's go back to the regular iPhone 16. I need to give the regular 16 some love. So the next thing you need to do is configure your display settings. So this is a very important one. This should be one of the first things you do. I should have had this higher on the list. So let's go into our settings. We have a lot of things to change here. So let's start simple. If we go into our settings and go to display and brightness, you want to make sure that you have your light and dark mode configured. I personally like having mine set to automatic, so it's light during the day and it's dark at night when the sun sets. Although right now it's 4:09 a.m. and I'm still in light mode, but that's just for this video. But down here we do also have our brightness and we do have auto lock. So auto lock I would recommend not having set to never. This is just a test device, so I have that, but I would recommend having this much higher than the 30 seconds that comes by default. This is when your phone will automatically lock if you're not, doing anything on it. It gets really annoying at the default, which is 30 seconds. So I would recommend having that set to maybe 3 to 5 minutes, somewhere in that range. And then raise to wake is a feature that's on by default. And what this does is when you raise your phone up, it wakes it up and it turns the screen on, which I always find leads to a lot of false positives and battery drain. So I turn that off. If you really like that feature, keep it on, but I personally turn that off. Night shift is a good feature to have turned on when it comes to, when you're on your phone late at night, maybe before bed. It's good to have a more warm temperature on your phone so it's not as bright and harsh on your eyes. So you maybe want to set that up on a schedule. And then if we go into our accessibility right here and then go to display and text size and go all the way to the bottom, we have our auto brightness. So that is on by default. I like having auto brightness on, but I know some people do not. So that is there for you to choose. We do also have reduce white point, which before that would really get your brightness down below 0%. But now with the iPhone 16s, we have, 1 nit of the lowest brightness we can get. So our brightness will go down pretty low, so you might not need reduce white point anymore, but it is there in case you need it. And this is also where you can change all of your text options as well. If you need larger text or bold text, you can do that from there. And then I'd also recommend adding the text size toggle to your control center. So this will allow you to change the size of text on the fly. Now this next tip is going to be really important for those who speak more than one language. So if you go into your settings here and then go into general and then down to keyboard, and then into keyboards up top right here, you want to go to your main language, which for me, it's English US. If you go into that, you'll see that we have a new option here for add language. So if you go into that, you want to select the other language that you speak, because finally we have a bilingual keyboard. So if I add Spanish right here and I go back to my keyboard, you'll notice down in the bottom right of the spacebar, it now says EN and ES, and that's because we can type both interchangeably and we can have predictive text working in both Spanish and English. Let me show you an example. So if I start typing out in English, you can see that the predictive text is going to be in English. However, if I start typing in Spanish, it will start giving me Spanish predictions. And you can see that it will continue giving me Spanish words and it will not, treat them as if they were misspelled like it would in previous iOS versions. So bilingual keyboard is a must-have if you speak more than one language. The next thing you want to do is take full advantage of the 48 megapixel camera on your iPhone 16 or 16 Pro, because by default, you're not actually getting 48 megapixel photos. So we need to change that. Go to your settings and then go to camera and then go down until you see formats. And right here under photo capture, we have photo mode, which is set by default to 24 megapixels. If it got changed back for some reason, change that to 24, but we need to change something else. We need to turn on this right here, resolution control, which is off by default. So turn that on. And you can see it tells you that it will be able to capture a maximum of 48 megapixels as long as you're not in night mode or taking flash photos. So if we take a regular photo, it will only take it as a 24 megapixel photo, which is fine. But if you want the full 48 megapixels, you need to go into your camera after enabling that setting. And you see this up top where it says JPEG Max, it's crossed out. Tap on that and that will enable JPEG Max, which is going to give you 48 megapixel photos. So if we go ahead and take this photo now, you can see it does take a little bit longer to process, but now if we swipe up, it will show 48 megapixels. And you'll also notice that it took that photo in JPEG format. However, that's only because we have most compatible selected right here. If you select high efficiency, it will save it as an HEIF format photo. So I'd recommend most people stick with high efficiency and HEIF just to save the most amount of storage space, and the image quality is going to look nearly identical to JPEG. Now the next thing you want to do is try out the other new camera features. So I'm not going to make each and every one of these another thing to do in this video because there's so many things about the camera already, but I just want to bunch all these in together. So there are multiple things that you could do with the iPhone 16 that's pretty awesome. So number one, you can now have audio playing while you're video recording. So if you're shooting a video, you can have audio playing at the same time, and that is actually a setting that is enabled by default, but if for some reason it got disabled, that's inside your settings. Go to camera and then go to record video and then go down to record sound, and right here we have allow audio playback. That is the setting you want to change if you want to be able to record, video while audio is playing. Now the iPhone 16 Pros can shoot in 4K 120 FPS. So this is not available on the regular 16 or 16 Plus, but this feature is awesome, not just because it's amazing to shoot 4K 120 in general, but also because of a feature that's built in to iOS 18 to help us really get the most out of that 4K 120. Because if you go to edit right here, take a look at this. Right up in the top right here, we have this little speedometer icon. If you tap on that, you're allowed to change the FPS. You're allowed to change the playback speed on the fly after recording. So if I want a certain part of a video to only be in 60 FPS, I can slow that down and it's going to be so buttery smooth because I shot it in 120 FPS. You definitely need to try that out if you have a 16 Pro or Pro Max. It is quite incredible. Do it with something that's moving very fast so you can get the full effect. And you'll also notice in the camera application on both the iPhone 16 and 16 Pros, we now have spatial mode. So you can record spatial photos and videos with your camera now. So that was a big reason that Apple switched to the stacked camera design on the regular 16s, was for shooting spatial video. So you can now do that. Even if you don't have an Apple Vision Pro, it's still worth actually shooting, really important moments in spatial, because you never know when you're going to want to look back on that. Because I can tell you right now, as somebody who owns a Vision Pro, it feels like you're there. So if you have a wedding coming up, if you have kids, take some videos, take some photos in spatial mode, and your future self will thank you. The next thing you need to do is try out the upgraded ultra-wide lens on both the iPhone 16 and the 16 Pro, because both have been improved this year. So for the base model iPhone 16, you now get macro shots for the first time. So as long as you're in 1x or in 2x, you will see the little flower icon in the bottom left-hand corner. That's how you can turn on and off the autofocus for the ultra-wide lens, and that is how you can get really close to a subject and take a macro shot. But I have to say, the Pros get an even bigger improvement with the ultra-wide lens this year, because it's now a 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera. So your 0.5x shots are going to look way better than they looked with the 15 Pro and especially any older iPhone. Now here's a very important one if you have an iPhone 16 Pro or Pro Max. You want to go into your camera settings and you want to go down to Format, and you need to enable both ProRAW and resolution control and Apple ProRes. Those are going to be the main Pro features that you have in the camera, and ProRAW especially is a big deal. So when you go into your camera, that's what you see up top here. If you go into photo mode, up top here we have HEIF Max. If you tap and hold on that, you can choose between your different options up there, which RAW Max is going to give you the best quality possible. So not only do you need to enable that, but you need to go back here and go to Pro Default, because we have multiple new options here. So we now have JPEG XL in the iPhone 16 Pro, which is amazing. So you can see we have JPEG XL lossless and lossy, and you can see the file sizes below, the approximate file sizes for these photos. So I think most people should go ahead and choose JPEG XL as their ProRAW format. It's just going to be the best overall, at least for what I do and just for, the internet in general. It's much better than HEIF to me. And the reason I say JPEG XL is better is because it is better optimized for web rendering, and it's also backwards compatible with JPEG. So a lot of those data points are saved in that JPEG XL file, which is really convenient. So this section up top is just where you change the default, but down here is where you change the actual format for these ProRAW shots. So JPEG XL is just a format. It's not like something new like ProRAW, it's just a format of ProRAW. It's a codec. So you want to choose one of these down here. I'm going to go ahead and stick with JPEG XL lossless. And keep in mind, you will lose live photos with this, so you're not going to be able to shoot live photos. If you go into the camera here and we go ahead to RAW Max, you'll see that we're not able to enable live photos when we have RAW Max. But I personally don't use live photos, so that's not really a downside to me. And like I also mentioned, we do have Apple ProRes down here. So if you have not shot in ProRes, you need to shoot in ProRes. It is just so amazing on these Pro phones, especially on the 16 Pro and Pro Max. If you want really crispy video, go ahead and do this. And I would recommend just having this set to log instead of HDR. Obviously, HDR is fine if you don't want to edit anything in post in Final Cut Pro or, DaVinci, whatever you use. But if you do have a video editing software, you should go ahead and choose log. That's how you'll get the best, the most data in that file. And while we're talking about video, you need to go into your camera settings and go to record video and make sure you go down here and have lock white balance turned on. That's probably the most important thing in your camera settings. That way you don't have a bunch of different colors throughout your video, especially if you're trying to shoot something semi-professional. So the next thing you need to do is understand that you can now record phone calls. Yes, you can record phone calls on the iPhone 16 and iPhone 16 Pro thanks to iOS 18. So if you go into your phone and you're in a phone call, if you take a look up in the top left-hand corner, we have a new icon there that shows a little waveform with a record button. If you tap on that, you'll get this new UI that pops up that says this call will be recorded, and the person on the other end of the phone will hear an audible prompt telling you that it's being recorded. So this is recording both sides of the phone, so it records you and the other person. And when you stop this and go into the notes application, it will actually save that phone call and give you a summary of the transcript of everything that was said. And then the final thing you need to do on the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro is explore the new audio mix feature, because this is quite impressive. So if you go into a video and you go to the edit mode, you'll see that we have a new option down here for audio mix, and this will allow you to choose different audio mixes that will basically give you a result that is similar to, in frame is basically going to only capture audio from the people that are in frame. It's going to drown out the background noise. Studio is going to make you sound like you're in a studio, and cinematic is going to basically take, if there's say you're in a coffee shop, the background chatter will sound kind of like how it sounds in a movie. It kind of subdues the sound and it makes, your voice really loud and really prominent. So the only one that's a Pro exclusive is Studio, and that's because of the 4-mic array that's inside of the Pro series this year, which is not in the 16 and 16 Plus. And here's an example of audio mix in action. So this is a test for the audio mix feature on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So I want to see if it actually sounds like a studio microphone. I have a studio microphone right there, so I know what a studio microphone sounds like. Let's see if this sounds even close and how it compares to regular iPhone audio. So you let me know in a comment down below which one sounds better and if this actually makes a big difference. So those are some of the first things that you need to do on your brand new iPhone 16 or 16 Pro. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to get your hands on any of the wallpapers that you saw throughout this video, they are all linked down in the description below. That's a great way to support me and the channel. If you found this video useful, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more iPhone 16 coverage, consider subscribing to the channel. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.